We are doing an application with Android Volley, and as we have seen in the previous lesson, Volley has a queue to download all the information. In our application, we want to download everything with the same queue. This means that we want to access to the same queue from all the application. We might want to access to the same queue from one activity and from one adapter at the same time. So this is a common problem that has been solved before in Java or in another programming language. So to solve this, we are going to use a design pattern. And this is the first time that we introduce this concept. A design pattern is a general reusable solution to a commonly occurring problem. A design pattern has different implementation depending on the language. But a design pattern is a pattern that is going to tell you how to solve that problem. So the good thing about this is that if you are working with more people, that people, other developers, they are going to know the patterns, so they are going to easily understand what you are doing. So it's easier to read the code from a developer when it's using patterns. And in this case, we are interested in the singleton pattern. As you can see, a singleton pattern is a design pattern that restricts the instantiation of a class to one object. So this is exactly what we want. We want to have only one queue, only one instantiation, and share that through all the application. So we are going to implement this pattern. So if we come back to Android Studio, we can create a class which is going to be our singleton class. I'm going to call it like connection manager, for example. Okay, and this class what is going to have is the queue. So in this case, we are going to create the volley queue as we have done here. So we need the context of the activity in this case. So what do we need to do is have a static variable we are going to have a request queue, and then we are going to have a static method that create this queue. Don't worry about the static for now, we will explain it later. The next thing is a private static method called getInstance. This getInstance is going to create the object if it doesn't exist, or if it exists, is going to return the object. So okay, we have a request queue already, and now what we want to do is create this variable or return the same variable if it doesn't exist. So how can we do this? This method is going to return a request queue and it's called getInstance. Okay, so we start. If queue is null, then we have to create the queue. So we create it like this. So queue equals volley new request. Okay, this is going to need a context, a variable context. Okay, and now we are going to return the queue. So the first time that we call this method, queue is going to be null. So then we are going to instantiate queue. We are going to assign a value to create the queue. And the second thing is to return the queue. The second time that we call this method, this is not going to get executed, and we are just going to return the queue that we had before. Okay. So the way to use this singleton, instead of creating the queue here, we will have to retrieve the queue from the manager. retrieve our existing queue from the manager. Okay, so we have a connection manager. We only have to do connection manager dot get instance. It has to be public, so we can access to this method from outside this class. Okay, now that it's public, we can do connection manager get instance, and this needs a context which can be the activity. Okay, so our queue in this case is going to come from the connection manager. Now, if we have an adapter, any other part of our application, we can do exactly the same and we will have the same queue. So that is the concept on the singleton. Have the same object in the whole application. We create the object once and then we use it again forever. Okay, now we are going to explain what is static. Static means that this variable is part of the class itself. It doesn't have to be in an object of the class. So for example, I don't have to do new connection manager. I don't have to create a connection manager object to execute its methods. This is a method that I can call without any object of this class. I can call it directly. I can type the name of the class and the name of the method. To finish, I'm going to call this sq, and this s means that is static. So this is just by convention, so in case you see it in another application, you know what it is. Okay, and in the main activity, we could even simplify this because I am creating a queue here, but I am only adding a request. So I could save the assignation of the variable and I could just get the queue right here, get instance, and then I add the request directly to the variable. So that is the idea of the singleton pattern. Every time I need the queue, I just type this in any part of my application. I don't have to create any object. I just going to have add this static variable in memory for all the application.